Hey, shout out folks, it's Bob the Old Rucker, and thanks for listening to Shout Out from the Pit. Just a few admin notes before we launch into our show. First, thanks for the great feedback. Please keep it coming. You know, we've got thick skin and open minds, so whatever we can do to improve your show, let us know. And remember, everybody has a story, and we're always looking for folks to share their experience, strength, and hope. If you've overcome something and have a toolbox that can provide others with hope to overcome their challenges, let us know. Check out shoutoutfromthepit.com and share your story under our contact tab. Redbeard or I will reach out to you for a chat and talk about doing a show. Remember, just give us your first name and what state or country you're from. Merchandise and branding. We're asked about shirts and merch, and though it all sounds awesome, we don't have a budget yet to go that direction. So if you have graphic skills and merchandise opportunities that are cheap, and I mean really cheap, and made in America, of course, hit us up at shoutoutfromthepit.com. And be sure to subscribe to the show and share it with a friend because, hey, it's for free and for fun. Okay, here's what to expect from this show. Sloan and I go back pre-recovery. We've got stories. He's one of the original members of what we affectionately call the tribe, and the only person in recovery who knew me then and now. But this is his story, his then and now. So, on with the show. Hey, shout out, folks. It's Bob the Old Rucker coming at you raw and uncensored. And as always, only God knows what's going to happen on this show. Welcome to Shout Out from the Pit, where the host sucks, but the guests are awesome. I'm the host, and Redbeard, the brains behind the scenes, my friend, my partner, and producer. Our goal is to bring stories and topics designed to add to your toolbox as you trudge the road to happy destiny. Joining us today are voices you've heard before, my friends and tribal members, Sloan and Dwight. Gentlemen, give a shout out.
Hello.
I do appreciate you, gents, and I'm always grateful that y'all take time out to come out and do this kind of thing. And, just to let folks know they're not alone.
An honor to be here, Bob.
Amen. All right. So, icebreaker. Before we get started, did you know that here's some things about alcoholism, right? You can inherit alcoholism from your family. If there is alcoholism in your family, you are 4 times more likely to develop alcoholism. Having you two guys here and knowing your backstories, did you have alcoholism in your family, Dwight?
Yes. Not in my immediate family, but my dad's brothers.
Okay, that's right.
Yeah, my dad's brothers.
That's
my
right.
dad didn't drink, but his 2 brothers of his actually literally killed themselves because they were alcoholic.
Oh, my. Okay. And Sloan?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Grew up in an alcoholic home.
Okay.
Get into that, yeah.
Oh, that's right. We're going to get into that. Okay. The other thing is alcohol withdrawal can be fatal. Someone who abuses alcohol for a very long time has caused extreme damage to many of the body's systems. For these individuals, stopping drinking abruptly can lead to seizures or even death. Attending a medical detox facility is highly recommended. It can save a life. I know, Sloan, we're going to get into your story today, so we'll table that. Mm-hmm. You have any thoughts on that, Dwight?
Well, I agree with that. I mean, I went to rehab to get dried out, and so they referred me to AA, and I come to AA, and I've been in it ever since.
Okay. Alcoholism is a progressive disease. Yes. God bless, Lord. Help me with my tongue. Alcoholism increases in severity whether you are drinking or not. Many people who have quit drinking for decades experience extreme symptoms very quickly after starting back. Yep. Their alcoholism can be far worse than it was when they originally quit drinking.
Absolutely.
I can attest to that.
We've seen it time and time again.
Yep.
Lived it. Yeah. So.
Yep. As a retread, when I quit, I would say that I was a wild man. I was very young. But then when I decided to go back out after a number of years, I mean, almost within a week, not only did I pick up where I'd left off, I was advanced.
Mm.
I was like, man, I at that point, I consider myself a real pro. Okay. Here's another one. There is a difference between heavy drinking and alcoholism. Someone can go on a binge and drink far too heavily in a short period of time. This is heavy drinking. A heavy drinker can completely stop drinking on his or her own. Alcoholism is dependence on alcohol. Here, a person has cravings and withdrawal symptoms and just cannot quit. And you know what goes through my mind when I read that? Guys that I worked with and kind of grew up with, my young adult years, it's just all of a sudden one day they were like, I'm done. It's time to be a family man. Raise kids, be a husband, move up in the career, buy a house, pick up the dog do, hope that it's dry, be an ordinary average guy. I couldn't identify with those guys. They just quit. And then there's guys like us that, and Dwight, we'll get into your story here sometime, but you were not only, a late bloomer, but, man, you took the bull by the horns. We'll cover that later, but, it just cracks me up when I hear you tell about that. All right. So this one, also resonates. Alcohol causes depression. Do you want to be mentally and emotionally stronger in the face of adversity? Keep a gratitude journal. When people are mindful of the good things in their life, they are focused outward, keeping mental focus outside of the self and tend to lessen depression, aggression, and resentment. I have yet to meet, I've met drinkers that are happy, exuberant, life of the party. But then I've met alcoholics that are just sorry they're alive today.
Absolutely.
I have not met an alcoholic that's just exuberant, the life of the party, leader of the pack. Granted, at one time when they were drinkers, they might have been that. But when the alcohol turned on them, you don't see anything in their face but sorrowness, sorrowfulness.
No, I think that's the great trap about it because it starts out fun. Mm-hmm. And then you always want to get back to that point, but you just
can't.
There's something about it. Once you cross that line, you can't go back.
And we hear that story so often. Okay, and there's two more here. Alcoholism kills. No surprise there. Every year, this is staggering. Over 85,000 Americans lose their lives because of alcoholism. That's a city. Mm-hmm. When you stop and think about it, that's a whole city just extinct. A chronic alcoholic dies on the average 30 years earlier than a normal drinker. And we all know somebody, sadly, that died before their time. Yeah. Alcoholics die of liver disease, car accidents, seizures, mental incapacities, and the list goes on ad infinitum. And this one, the last one here, it kind of directly hits us, but we see it more indirectly. Alcoholism is costly for all of us. $220 billion were spent in 2006 alone on medical costs and taxpayer dollars to combat and deal with alcoholism. Wow. The amount spent today is much higher. And to be fair with you, I tried to find, later statistics. I mean, this is 2025. We're talking 19 years ago. $220 billion is a lot of money then and now.
Yes.
And I can't imagine how much more it is now. All right, so I don't want to belabor this anymore. First, a big shout out to Sloan. We are finally getting to hear your story.
Woo!
I know for one thing for sure, you've got 4 years in recovery.
Just past 4 years?
Just past 4 years. And Dwight and I can say that we have watched you in the entirety of your journey. The difference between Dwight and I, of course, seeing the progression of the awesome person that you've become. I actually knew you before your journey started. And in fact, you knew me before my journey started. So we have some commonalities that we can chat about on the show. Mm-hmm. But before we get into, the then, mm-hmm. I want you to give us, like I usually say, the Reader's Digest version or, the nickel tour of who is Sloan today.
Okay. Sloan, Paramount is Sloan is sober today. Without that, none of the other stuff I'm going to talk about would be possible. So I lead a reasonably happy life. I have a house. I have a little cat that I just absolutely adore. She brings me so much joy. And I'm active in my program, the program of Alcoholics Anonymous. I have, we've made reference to the tribe in here. There's a group of us guys that go out and do stuff, and we do recovery stuff, and then we do other stuff. I'm active with those guys. I come here and do podcasts and have morning meetings, and I've got my family back. I'm on good terms with my family. I live right across the street from my brother, so I can bebop over there and eat dinner with them, spend time with my nieces, whom I love very much. None of that went on when I was out there. None of that stuff was happening. I was isolating. I was sad. I was depressed. I was contemplating offing myself. It was just all this negative things were swirling around, and I couldn't see the forest for the trees. Once I quit trying to stop the notion of controlling the uncontrollable and surrendered and got ready to change my life and listen to some people that had a little bit of sobriety under their belt. And it didn't take long for me coming in the program to see guys in there, and I thought, I want what they have. They're happy. They're doing things. They're living a life. And I wasn't able to do that as long as I had drugs and alcohol blocking me. That's paramount. So does that kind of answer your question, Bob? Okay.
Yeah. As we get into this, we'll have some, more specific leading the witness questions.
All right.
But anytime, Dwight, jump in if something crosses your mind, you want to ask whatever. So feel free. All right. So talking about the early days, I'm not necessarily saying your earliest memories, but what was it like? I'm sorry, I laugh because if you don't tell this story, I'll remind you of it because it does make me laugh. There are some funny things that happened to us in our youth, but they're not really supposed to be funny. They weren't supposed to happen at all. But you have some, and Sloan, nobody tells a story like you do. So just you are our comic relief in our tribe. And I think you've heard that enough. You've just got this natural thing about you where you do make people feel good, but you're able to take, a sad story and flip it on its face. So it's funny, but it's also a reminder to us that, thank God for the route we're on now.
Yeah.
But tell us about, your youth. I mean, what was it like growing up in the Sloan house?
Okay. So the Sloan house was, we lived in kind of a bedroom community of Little Rock. And we had a very cool house, very cool place. It was on 6 acres, right in the middle of the city, but it was like a farm. And we had a pond in the backyard, had a swimming pool, had a little field out back with some horses. And we had ducks and chickens. And at some point we had a turkey and just that kind of stuff was going on. And, I used to love being outside, doing fishing. Hunting, I guess you could say, with BB guns. We shot every bird and squirrel, me and the neighborhood kids. There was no wildlife in that immediate area. And once we finished with all that, then we turned them on each other and would have BB gun wars. But we were always outside doing something. One of the reasons for that, I can go into what my dad is an entrepreneur. He started a printing company in the late 70s. He poured his heart and soul into that company. It was not instantly successful. And my dad's just one of those kind of guys that he came from nothing and he decided he was going to make this thing work, and he put his whole heart and soul into it. He put a lot of hours into that company, and he was going out of state a lot to call on big customers. And then he was coming back and trying to figure out, he would get an order and try to come back and try to figure out how to run it. So he was gone a lot. He was pouring himself into that business so that he could provide for his family and make it work. So that left me and I've got a brother that's 5 years younger than me. That left us there alone with my mom, who I call my mom a real live alcoholic. She was in the throes of the disease. And before I go on, I'm not sitting here trying to disparage my mom. I loved her very much. She was a wonderful person when she was sober. And I've got more of my mom's traits than my dad's. You know, all this funny storytelling ability and outwardness that I have, and ease of talking to people, I think, came from my mom. But she was sick. She had a disease called alcoholism, and she had it bad. She was a daily drinker. She was prone to cuss somebody out. She was not beyond physical violence. She would, many times I would get off the bus, walk in the house, and mom might be passed out with a cigarette burn on the chair, you know, and the cigarette's burned all the way up to her fingers. And I would just throw my books down on the table and head outside, because that was the best case scenario, was when she was passed out. When she wasn't passed out, she was not fun to deal with. As we know, drunks are not exactly fun to deal with. So that was the dynamic growing up in the house. Very unpredictable. I wouldn't say, I always had a roof over my head and had food on the table, and it wasn't bad. And I was by no means abused, although there was some physical altercations with my mom.
Tell us about the Christmas story.
Oh, okay. I didn't know if that was one of the ones. So this was one of the few times I had friends over, because I would have friends over, but we'd always stay outside, because when you went inside my house, as you'll see from this story, it was always, you never knew what was going to happen. But we had an old Atari video game system. I don't know if you remember those.
Oh, yeah.
Get on there and play that Atari. And it was at Christmas time. So we were in the front room of the house, but you could see into the other room of the house, and you could see the Christmas tree. The gifts were underneath it. The lights were flashing. And so my mom had called my dad earlier in the day, and she had bought something. And when she told him what she paid for it, he said, well, they must have seen you coming, because you paid way too much for that. So they hang up, and her being the alcoholic she is, she sat and stewed on that all day and drank over it. And I remember her grumbling, that's so-and-so, to tell me to, that I can't spend our money in a certain way, and a lot of choice superlatives behind that. And I was a kid. I didn't really pay that much attention to it, but I didn't realize how mad she was over it. So my dad comes in from work. He's got his suit and tie on. He's got his suit coat slung over his shoulder. He's tired. You can just tell he's off work. He's tired. He's coming in. He says, hey guys, how you doing? And the neighborhood kids say, oh, hey, Mr. Osborne. I said, hey Dad, we're playing our Atari. But I remember watching him go through the door next to the Christmas tree. And I guess my mom had started in the kitchen and got a full running start and just tackled him. So I just see my dad in the door, and then I see my mom flying through the air and just bop right into the Christmas tree, smashing down on the gifts. Of course, that's, how he gets greeted when he walks through the door. And she was going for it, man. She was fighting him. She was hitting him.
Oh.
And my dad, man, God bless him. He showed, now that I'm a man and knowing that, I would never lay my hands on a woman, but I'd also expect the same from them. He showed a lot of restraint in holding her off of him and saying, what, you crazy so-and-so, what are you doing, And the neighborhood kids, I remember, just thought that was so funny. They just laughed so hard because they'd never seen anything like that. Like, what happens over here? And I was embarrassed over it, and, I didn't want to see my parents in that position, and I said, you guys got to go. But that was the norm at our house. You never knew, like, that wasn't a daily event, but you never knew what might be going on in the house.
So, not putting the cart before the horse, but at this time you weren't involved in illicits yourself.
I was not. I was pretty young at that point. I would have probably been 12 or 13 at this point.
Okay. So in your house is a little bit raucous, but, you're just a surviving outdoors kid doing silly things, or inside playing the Atari as all you're witnessing all this. When did you begin your journey with illicits?
Okay, so a few more years later, I think I was about 16 or 17, and one day my mom just up and left my dad. He just moved out without any explanation. She got an apartment across town, and she did not we were still of age, she could have fought for custody. She did not want custody of us. I never could figure out why she did that, but I think she did it now that I've gone through the whole process of alcoholism and recovery. I think she did it because she wanted to drink so she could drink like she wanted to drink with nobody hounding her. And she was able to do that. So me being 16, 17 years old, rather than being part of her solution, I thought, man, I can take my buddies over there and we can drink all we want. If she's going to be snockered and passed out, we can either get into her liquor, or I would talk her into going and buying me some and say, oh, we'll stay here and drink, and justifying it like that. So I was the coolest kid in my little group of running buddies. I've always regretted that I did that I wasn't part of the solution for. That's what 16, 17-year-old kids do, you know? So that's where I started my use of, I guess if you would consider alcohol, it wasn't illicit because it was absolutely illegal for me at 16 to be drinking like that. And it wasn't every day, but it was on the weekends. Soon after that, we started smoking some pot, you know, started running with the kids who like to do that kind of stuff. At that point, it was not, you know, I had no inkling that I would ever be an addict or an alcoholic at that point. I just liked to party. And so did everyone else that I hung around, and as do a lot of kids when they're that age in school. It's not such an abnormal thing, you know, to try to sneak around and get alcohol before the age of legality. So, you know, that's where that was with me. I was just I like to party. And soon that turned into, you know, I remember then we did acid some, and then we experimented with some cocaine. But it never was really that. At that point, it was just more curiosity and experimentation. And gosh, then it turned, everything around here started going into meth. Meth started really taking over. And I remember the first time I did meth, we were at a party, and we sent this girl that we knew, the Rona that you, it wasn't her, but it was a mutual friend of ours, sent her to go get some pot for us. And so we waited on her. She came back and she said, well, I couldn't get that, but I got you some of this. And she handed us a tiny little bag of white powder. It was meth. I said, well, what are we supposed to do with this? I don't even know. What is this stuff? You know, I thought we'd been ripped off. I thought that she borrowed us a bag of baby powder or something. She said, no. I'll show you how to do it if you give me a line as well. So we took an old CD case. That's how we used to listen to music.
All right.
And we got a credit card and made the little lines out. That was like 4 of us. And we dumped it all out and made 4 lines. And he said, just roll a dollar bill up and snort it up your nose. And I'm like, what the heck? What could it hurt? You know? And it did hurt. Oh. It felt like the space shuttle's engines were firing off in my nose. I mean, And we all did that. And I thought, man, I don't know if she just gave me some kind of drain cleaner or something. You know, I was just not sure. If that
Cheech and Chong episode. Right. Yeah.
And, but no, I got out of the car and went into that party. And I thought, man, I just felt I felt like I was a better version of myself. I just felt on top of the world, and I thought, man, I like that stuff. I want more. And that started out pretty slowly. After I graduated, I tried college. I was not cut out for school. I just never have been much of a book guy. I don't like to study. So I didn't really swing it in college, and I got bad grades. So my dad said, I'm not going to keep paying for that if you're going to be getting D's and F's. And I said, well, why don't you give me a job at your printing company? By this time, the printing company had really started to come on, and it was successful. And I said, I'll come to work for you. And so that started out great, doing the printing company. He put me in charge of a department, and we actually started a new department, me and one other guy, whole new process of printing, whole new customers. We went out and found some used equipment and started printing this job on used equipment. And later on, looking back on it, and other people looked at it and went, how the heck did you do that on that piece of equipment? We didn't know what we didn't know. We had no idea that we weren't even supposed to be able to do that kind of printing on that equipment. And we fought with it, but we we got it. And I was really proud of that we did the research and found the equipment and got it in and learned how to run it. But the whole time I was using meth. And at first I would just use it as a tool. I would, in the mornings, wake up and I would have a little small line of meth in a straw. And when my alarm went off, I would hit the button and get up and stretch and grab that straw first thing and do that little bit of meth. And it gave me that extra little kick where I could go into work. And I felt like it was almost like a life hack. Like I was a little better version of myself, because by nature, I'm kind of lazy, kind of not a motivated type guy. I don't have that drive like my dad has it. I did not get that gene. I'm just not a real self-motivated type of a person. That got me motivated. And that's all I did. I used it in the morning, went to work, did my job. Everything was fine. And that's what I did every morning.
Okay, so I don't know a lot about meth. I would say that's one of my yets. Everything out there, because I'm an addictive personality, so anything out there I haven't tried is a yet to me. So educate me on this, because I know very much about alcoholism, because that's my longest streak. Of course, I've done other drugs, but not like I did alcohol. Alcohol for me had as we stated in the beginning of the show, a progression where, a shot got me happy. But a shot after a week, it wasn't enough. Needed 2 shots, needed 3. Does meth have that same type of characteristic about it where, you got a little bump, I think they call it, right, in the morning, yeah. But then a bump wasn't enough. You needed a double bump?
Yeah, a double bump. And exactly, that's what I was about to go into. It became a little more. I needed a little more. And then after a while, I was having to go home at lunch and getting a bump because I couldn't go the whole day through. It wasn't enough for me. So, yeah, and that got out of control. Having to go home and do that at lunch. I couldn't go to lunch with my guys or couldn't do anything else at lunch. I had to regiment my time so I could go home and do that. Sometime in there, I got introduced to smoking meth, snorting it. And then that's really a whole nother level of addiction, because it's like you just said with the shot, 1 hit does great, 2 hit does even better. 76 do even better than 75 were. So what I would do is go home at lunch and start smoking it. Say I've got an hour for lunch. It took me 15 minutes to get home. It's going to take me 15 minutes to get back. So, by the time I check my mail and walk in the house and throw my keys down and get my stuff, get my little kit out to smoke it with, I've got about 15 minutes that I can safely smoke it and then put it all away and go back to work. 15 minutes would come and go. Say I had to be back by 1, but it's going to take me 15 minutes to get there. It's 15 to 1 and I'm sitting there smoking it going, just one more and I'll be good and I'll make it back to work. Okay, well, I'll only be 5 minutes late from lunch. Okay, I'm only going to be 10. Now it's 1:00 and I haven't left my house yet. Shit, I've got a meeting at 1:30. Now I'm going to be late for that meeting if I'm not careful. And that became more and more apparent that I was not performing. I wasn't able to be on time. And then God forbid if I ran out, I would just not go to work. I didn't have any motivation whatsoever. And I needed to catch up on my sleep anyway, which, my dad's still the owner of the company and that drove him crazy. I would be doing wonderfully because I was high. And then all of a sudden I would come down and be a no call, no show for 2 days in a row. And he would come over to the house and bang on my door and I'd wake up and, what are you doing? It was a printing company. So there was jobs with deadlines and things going. And I could not, most jobs, you can't just be a no call, no show for 2 days in a row and then come back and expect no repercussions. So I was juggling that and it was just getting worse and worse. We're talking about over a period of years here. I would slack off for a little while and say, I've got to get a better handle on it because I'm getting out of control. And then I would try to get a handle on it and then it would get back out of control again. So it was always this push-pull until finally my dad would say, if you are a no call, no show again, don't even bother to come back because I'm going to take you off the payroll. And so I would do that. And then I would come back and say, Dad, listen, I changed. Things are different now. put me in a different department, and I rotated through every department at the company, and I was usually good at what I'd put my mind to until I got so out there that I would do the same old things again. And it was a terribly vicious cycle by the end of it, So this is over years. Sometime in that period, in the early period, talking about my mom, she died of alcoholism. That was really rough on me. I didn't do well with that. I decided to try to make sure she didn't die. That was, that was not my place to do that. So that was her. That was a gift. Her journey. But, that was early on, very close. And then by the end of it, she was sick to drink. I don't know. So, we spent a lot of time with her. Terrible, vicious cycle together with her sober.
Let me ask you a couple things before we kind of move into break. But the first thing, relationships. What was it like having relationships? You had shared earlier that you stopped going to lunch with the guys, and so I'm sensing there was some isolation there that went from being the party guy to the isolationist.
Absolutely.
What about relationships as far as love interests go?
Oh man, it was well, I'm not going to say what it was. It was totally dysfunctional. I tended to date women that didn't drink or do drugs. So I would try to hide it, and I would say, okay, I got a good one here. I need to really either stop doing it altogether or really hide it. So I would stop for a little while, a couple of months, and then I would inevitably run into one of my old buddies that said, hey, man, I got some good stuff. And all right, let's go, to your house and get real high. And so then I would go around my significant other high, and she has no idea that I'm a drug user or an alcoholic. And she's like, what's wrong with you? Did you sleep at all last night? I'm like, no. I'd dated one girl, and I'd get up in the middle of the night, sneak out of bed and just leave. And I still had a house, but I was living with her. So I'd go back to my other house. And of course she thought I was going out cheating on her or something. That's not normal to do that. And she was like, I don't know if you're like an insomniac or like, do you have some sort of a medical problem? What's going on with you? So I would not be able to hide it very well. And I think I self-sabotaged a lot of that just because relationships get in the way of my self-will run riot. I wanted to do what I wanted to do when I wanted to do it. Sometimes in a relationship, that doesn't cut it. So I couldn't date women that didn't do drugs or alcohol. And then when I tried to date ones that did do drugs and alcohol, it blew up even worse. So I was about 6 months was about the longest relationship I could hold down before everything came off the rails, which was a common theme for everything in my life. I could hold it for a little while. I was great on the front end, and then it would all just come apart in a spectacular fashion.
One of the things I'm grateful for right now is that you're on so many of the episodes that some of your other stories come out on those episodes, and it just floors me. And so audience, you got to listen to some of these other episodes of some of the stories that Sloan has been involved in. It just blows my mind because knowing you, as long as I have, I didn't even know that you'd had such an insane history that I don't even know how you're alive. And I'm not talking about the medical side. I'm just talking about the positions and the places that you've gone and put yourself into because of drugs and alcohol.
Absolutely.
But what I want to do before we go on break, if you could tell us what was like we say, turning point. What was this something has to end? Because you'd already gone through a rehab prior, right, which we've covered on other episodes.
Exactly.
But what we haven't really covered is what was it? This is it. Something's got to happen.
Okay. So I did go to rehab, probably about the year 2000. I had a small business that I had started. Same thing happened. Everything came off the rails because I was strung out. I went to rehab. I was not ready at that point. I went to rehab because my business was coming down, falling down around me, and I couldn't make payroll that week. So I thought, I got to do something. So I went to a treatment center. I wasn't quite ready to, I still had this notion that if I could just get it under control, I'd be okay. But I did go to the treatment center. I went to some AA meetings, and I liked what they had to say, but I didn't want to get a sponsor. I didn't want to do that. I lasted a few months and I went back out. At that time when I went back out, so in my alcoholic mind, I thought, well, that didn't work for me. My business has failed. I've let my family down. I've let myself down. I can't do anything right. I might as well just go for it. I had a little bit of money saved in a 401k. I cashed that out and just basically was couch surfing, living with whoever would have me around, and, doing drugs, drinking alcoholically. Because when the drugs ran out, I would certainly drink and drink alcoholically. It was a lot easier to get a hold of a lot of times than going through a drug dealer and all that. But it just got really dark. I was hanging out with some really bad hombres. I think there was some, I don't know how much you want to get into this, but there was some darker spiritual things going on there that were definitely not higher power influenced. It was all lower power, and it was just dark. It was a dark time, and it had me hook, line, and sinker. In that time, my health started failing pretty quickly. Actually, I was out of state. My feet swelled up. I was getting disoriented. I didn't know what was going on, and I'd never been sick a day in my life before this. And I got stuck out of state, and I had to get my dad and my brother to come get me because I was disoriented. I got lost in a big city and had to get a motel room, and I called them and said, I think I'm dying. Why they didn't say just call 911, I don't know, but they came and got me and brought me back, and I had experienced kidney failure. And they told me that if I would have come in 30 minutes later, I would not be sitting here right now. So I pushed it to the absolute limit.
Okay, now that part, now I'm familiar with, obviously, right, because I've known.
You were part of that story, yeah.
I knew you, I knew your family, and of course, I had already, been on my recovery journey. So my wife and I were just watching TV when your dad called and said that you'd coded out, and it just totally threw us for a loop. We're like, what do you mean you coded out? And well, they brought him back. I guess you died. They brought you back, or you were on the verge of death.
Yes, so I was very foggy at that time. I don't remember all of it, but I do remember being extremely worried.
What now? I mean, I know, but so the audience can get this. What did the medical professionals tell your dad about? I guess they'd done some blood tests on you and what have you. Well,
of course, when they brought me in there, they said, "You don't have any drugs in your system, right?" And I said, "Oh, of course not." That's the standard answer, right? And actually, when I was out of state, I was taking care of a friend of mine who had cancer, and she had some morphine. So she said, well, maybe you pop a couple of morphine while you're smoking the meth. Maybe you won't feel so bad.
Oh, my gosh.
Because my body had started rejecting the meth, and that was always my go-to. It always made me feel better, and all of a sudden, we're up there doing it, and I'm getting sick as a dog. I mean, it put me in the fetal position. I was like, oh, no, I'm going to die. Well, that went, a couple of hours in the fetal position, and she kept saying, do you want me to call 911? And I said, no, I'll be all right. Just let me be for a minute. And I started feeling a little better, and I got up and I said, you know what? I think I'm better. Let's go smoke some more. That was my MO. That was what I knew to do. So did that. It put me back in the fetal position, got feeling better. And she's like, I don't think we should do this again. And I'm like, come on, this time she said, well, I do have this morphine. I said, yeah, give me some of that, and I'll do the meth. It's a wonder I didn't OD or something, doing that, or cause myself in the position the state that I was in to go ahead and collapse. But that's when I said, I've got to get home. Something's really wrong with me. And so I left her, tried to come home, got disoriented, ended up in the hospital, coded out. And in the hospital, a doctor came by to see me, and he said, do you remember what went on? And I said, no. And he said, tell you something, man. He said, I'm not going to sit here and preach to you about your whether or not you're a drug addict or anything, but I know what your blood panel said. And he said, if you keep up using the stuff you're using, you're not going to be here very long at all. So you probably need to make a decision. And I don't know if I would like for you to tell the story, Bob, of the bud dial incident.
Yeah. So, I still have that, and I'll tell what happened, but if somehow, Redbeard can edit into this, episode, would you want to hear it first before I do it?
Absolutely.
Okay. So let's see if that can happen. But, so what happened was, your dad called me and, I answered it and I was like, hey, and, it turned out it was a butt dial, and I was just getting ready to hang up, but then I heard this nurse was, for lack of better words, going up one side of you and down the other, that you're going to die. And of course, got my attention because I'd gone to dinner with your dad, and we were talking about, a recovery journey for you. I had no idea what I didn't know. I had no idea that you were as engaged in the drugs and alcohol that you were. I just didn't know because you always seemed like a normal guy. So you handled it, what we call functional alcoholism, functional use. You handled it real well. But listening to this conversation, and then again, I should back up. I did hang up the first time. And then when it called back, it went to voicemail. That's why I have it captured.
Okay.
And that's what got me interested. The first time I was listening to it a little bit, and I couldn't tell what was going on because it was kind of muffled. So I did hang up. But when the second butt dial came in, it captured pretty well what we heard. And I always saved it for, just to play for you someday, but I forgot we had it. Now this is over 4 years ago. So again, maybe, here at break or something, we can find it and then talk about it. But anyway, so, now I know that I know, and Shannon knows that, hey, our friend Sloan isn't just in bad shape. He's facing death. And it became absolutely real to me at that point. I mean, hearing from your dad that, what we shared earlier, that was one thing, but to hear that voicemail, I was like, holy cow, who does that? I mean, what medical professional, faces off with a patient and says those kinds of things so strongly? So, but let's carry on from there. So you came out of the hospital, and what happened next?
Well, Bob, I remember I was certainly not in the mode for being ready quite yet for recovery, because in my mind, it still didn't work. I tried it once, and you had said, I think you should, I can find you a treatment center. And I said, oh, no. Whoa, back up. I'll be fine. I'm going to, be just, okay, Bob. And you said, well, look, man, I don't know if you told me about the phone call or not at that point, but you said, look, I know you've got some problems, man, and will you at least go to an AA meeting with me? And you had been in recovery, about a year?
4 years.
4 years,
yeah,
okay.
I was in 4 years though.
Yeah. So
I'm looking at about 8 now. So I had 4, now you got 4. So about 4 years.
I knew you had, we had known each other before either one of us were in recovery. You had found recovery. So then I was like, ooh, I don't want this guy to talk to me about recovery. Of course, that's kind of what we do is when we're still out there in our addiction. I didn't want to hear about it. I didn't want to talk about it. And God forbid he asked me to, go to a meeting or something like that. But when you did, whatever it was inside me, I mean, I was all out of answers. I had just almost died. I knew that if I went back and tried this thing, I thought, how many times have I thought I need to get a better handle on it? And I can never get a handle on it. Maybe I should try something different. And when you said, will you at least go to an AA meeting with me? I thought, well, what's it going to hurt? I've been to an AA meeting before. They're only an hour long. I can stand on my head for an hour if I have to. Let's just do it. And I'll get him off my back. I'll go to a meeting with him. I'll appease him. Then I'll start trying to figure something out. Well, God had a different plan. I think that God was all over this. This whole thing has God's fingerprint just right there on it. The butt dial, you asking me to go to a meeting. We went to a meeting. I think I got out of the hospital on a Sunday and we went on a Monday. I mean, it was right after I was still pretty weak and still pretty, my kidneys had failed, and the doctors kept saying you're going to be on dialysis for the rest of your life if you don't get a transplant. And I was like, nah, that's not, you don't know how strong I am. That's not going to be the case. So I was still kind of processing a lot of stuff. Went to that meeting, and I don't know what happened. Something came over me. I call it God. I didn't even believe in a higher power of God at that point. I didn't want no part of it. But something happened in that meeting where somehow I knew from the depths of my soul that I was right where I needed to be. And that was the first time I think in my adult life that I'd ever had that feeling, that I just absolutely knew I was right where I needed to be. And I thought, there's something to this. I can do this. If I listen this time, maybe I can do this. And that's where my journey started, my sobriety journey.
All right, so we're going to go on break, and then when we come back, we're going to talk about the journey and where you're at today.
The solution.
The solution, that's right.
Exactly.
And but just to hear myself say it, all of us in here are emissaries of recovery. You know, we're ambassadors, so to speak. So we can tell somebody about recovery. That's the recruiting part, so to speak. There's nothing in it for us except giving what was so freely given to us.
Exactly.
The retention part is completely upon each individual. So, I might have gotten you to go to a meeting, but the rest of this story is really about the choices that you made, that have brought you to where you're at today. So let's go on break. We'll come back and we'll pick up from there. All right, folks, welcome back. Again, having the show today with Brother Dwight here, and Sloan sharing his experience, strength, and hope, which we've been waiting a long time to do. So I'm so grateful. Sloan, you've definitely set the stage. There's no doubt in any of our minds that you are an addict, alcoholic, dually addicted, and you earned your seat in recovery. There's no doubt about that.
Thank you.
Not that anybody's proud about that, but let's
yeah.
Yay!
No, but I think it is important to establish that. I'm not talking about this stuff because I read about it in some book or, even through living it, as a kid with my mom. I went through it.
Yes, you did.
So
let me kick this off with a question that I really haven't asked previous guests before. So you know the life that you led, and you know the life that you lead now. If you had not led the life that you had prior to coming in recovery, what do you think that you've gotten on this recovery journey that has made you a better person? Let's just set illicits, alcohol, drugs, set all that aside. What kind of person have you become from the heart because of your recovery journey?
Well, Bob, I don't know that I would have been a spiritual person without all that stuff. And now I came into this program, and the biggest hang up I had was all the spirituality stuff and things about higher powers and God. It took a while for me to come around to that, and I lean into that big now. I'm a big proponent of prayer. I'm a big proponent of your higher power. If you want this thing and you're willing to meet him halfway, God will carry you out of whatever you're into. And I don't care how deep down the scale you've gone. So that's something that I don't think, without the illicits and without maybe seeing some of that darker stuff, the lower power, the bad feelings that I had, the hopelessness, all of that stuff, I don't think that I probably would have it would have been very possible that I would have just discounted any kind of spirituality or religion or any of that stuff, because my default setting is to say I don't go in for all that. But having a program, I came around to it, and I saw that if I wouldn't have seen the results from it, I wouldn't be doing it. That it's absolutely is very, very strong part of my life.
What are some of your observations, not just about yourself, but some of your observations? Like you said, you came in and you started, this time you felt serious about working the program. What were observations that you made that that you would say helped build your character?
Well, watching other people, such as you, Bob, such as you, Dwight, people that were, already there, that were, maybe not, giants or rock stars or totally famous people, but people that were living a reasonably happy life and that they were freely giving me these tools that they had. And they didn't have, there was no financial motives there. There was you didn't want anything from me. You just wanted to help me. And that was so different than that world that I'd just come out of, where it was dog eat dog. You had to watch yourself. You didn't let your guard down. And then all of a sudden I go into this loving, bunch of people that just loved me. And that felt so good, comparatively to what I had. And at first it was kind of hard to fathom. Like, are these people crazy? They're a little bit too happy almost, but it didn't take long to say, hey, this is genuine. This is not, this is bigger than anything. We're all in a fight for our lives here. But we don't have to be, we're not a glum lot. So yeah, that's one of the things that really appealed to me. That was the fact that I can go in there and I'm not judged. I'm not, there is no cliques. There might be a guy with 30 years in there and you've got 3 days. You're on the same level as that guy. That's awesome. There's no other thing in my life that I've ever been in, professionally or otherwise, that there's not a bunch of hierarchies, which kind of creates cliques. And, if you go in and you're the new guy, the old timers are not going to give you any, they're not going to pay attention to you. You don't get to hang out with them yet. And it's not like that in AA. They come over and give you a hug and say, hey, come over and have a seat. And, hey, we're going to go out to dinner tomorrow. You want to go with us? That kind of thing. You're part of the group. If you want to be part of this, if you want this, you can have it. And it doesn't matter what your past situation was, how far down the scale you've been, any of that kind of stuff, how long of time you've been in here, how much you know about the program, you're part of it. And that's awesome.
Talking about, and I agree with everything you just said, talking about struggles.
Okay.
We learned this term character defects, not something we've ever really heard before we came into recovery. Character defect. In your words, what does character defects mean?
Well, I know I didn't have any when I first came in the program.
Okay.
I didn't think I did. Man, that was such a concept to me of like, even if I do have them, why do I want to point them out? And why would we talk about that? But it's so you can work on them. I mean, I have plenty.
Well, so you say you have plenty, and I'm not asking you to open the flak jacket too wide.
Thank
but
you.
what is an area? You can call it soft or hard, whatever one you pick. What is an area that was revealed to you when you came in, started your recovery journey? Like, oh boy, this is a wrestling match with this that you had or still have. Maybe you still wrestle with it. How do you overcome that wrestling match with a said particular defect?
Well, there's several tools that you can use for that. Prayer is one, probably the biggest one. Prayer and meditation about it. For me, talking about them and putting them out in the open with other people that are in recovery. I don't do it to somebody that I'm in the, standing behind in the gas station line, or certain friends that I have that are not that sort of a friend. I may not open up to them and say, hey, I've got a character defect. They're going to look at you like you're crazy. But, us in recovery, we kind of get it because we all know we have character defects. So, and sometimes mine ebb and flow. Like some character defect, I'll think I've got it whipped, and then it'll come back. I don't know. I don't know. I can't think of any of my specific ones right now, but, just working on them with friends, hanging out with guys in recovery, and trying to just be cognizant of the fact that I have this defect and I need to work on it. Yeah. One of my defects is that I play too much. I like to razz people. I like to joke around, and sometimes I poke people probably when I shouldn't do it, or maybe it's something that they don't think is funny, and that really gets me going. Then I'm like, oh, now I'm really going to get them because I've got them now. It bothers them. And I like to do that. And sometimes I do take that too far. And I realize that. And I told a friend of mine the other day, I said, you may not realize this, but sometimes I play too much. And she said, oh, really? I wouldn't have had a clue, but she was being facetious, of course, but I like to pull her chain and, we have a great friendship, but yeah, sometimes I take it too far. Just little things like that. It's okay. It's part of my personality, but I can always work on it, especially if it's a problem or it's hurting other people or it's hurting my ability to grow in my recovery and my spirituality, then I need to work on it.
So there's an area that keeps a lot of people from even coming into recovery. And that same area tends to send people back out into the old life. And that topic or that area is shame and its brother guilt. How do you deal with, I'm not asking for episodes of what you did that caused the shame. Everybody experiences, I believe. How do you deal with shame and guilt today?
Oh, shame and guilt. I came in with a lot of it in certain areas of things that I handled badly over the years. Some things I had done where I really could have, where people were kind of looking at me to take the lead, and I totally crumbled because I was an addict. I was selfish and self-centered. I think that over time and working with a sponsor, I had to write some letters to some dead people and do some things like that, and turn that shame and guilt into, it's still a regret. I wish I wouldn't have done it, but I'm not going to beat myself up over it. I'm not going to sit and lay in bed staring at the ceiling at night thinking, what a piece of crap you are for doing that. It's done. I did it. I'm not happy about it. I don't have to carry it around. I can do better now. And hopefully I will do better. And I am doing better by the way I'm living my life now. I don't have to be that guy anymore. So that's kind of how I turned the shame and guilt into still a regret. It's probably always going to be a regret. I'm never going to be happy I did those things, but I'm not going to have to wallow in it and cause, because that's a good excuse to go out and drink or drug again. If I get that caught up in it and think, oh, what a terrible person what a terrible guy I am. I don't have to do that anymore. I think I'm a pretty good guy. I can look in the mirror and I like who I see back. I'm okay with myself. Of course I'm going to have regrets. Yeah. I don't have to live like that anymore. And I would think that now, if I was in that same position, I would handle it completely different.
I fall back on a Dwight line that I've used plenty of times.
Absolutely.
Dwight, you know what that line is?
Go ahead and remind me, Bob.
Sloan, you know what that line is? Say it.
Something akin to wallowing in that shame and guilt is like breaking into a house that I used to live in. I don't live there anymore.
That's right.
So yeah, it's pointless. It's I think God forgives us if we ask Him, and I think our friends will forgive us, and I'm sure that the people that are dead probably don't care one way or another. So what I need to do is forgive myself, and not just to clarify, I'm not the one that killed them or anything, but I didn't get a chance to make amends to them before they passed away and tell them, look, I really wished I would have handled that differently, and I'm sorry for that. We never got to say those words, and I just beat myself up about it so bad, and I don't do that anymore. It is what it is, and I can go on. If they are looking down on me from heaven, I think they're happy because they're saying, hey, he's not that same guy anymore.
That's right.
And I'm not from the bottom, God knows what's in my heart. I don't have that. I'm not that same guy anymore.
That's right.
Not react the same way anymore.
Yeah.
I can handle situations which used to baffle me.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. My dad used to say, first you get even, then you get revenge. And I lived by that for so long in this program. It's like, there is an energy associated with that I don't like.
No.
I don't like planning revenge or demise. And I like that my higher power says, hey, vengeance is mine, So Dwight, got any thoughts?
No, I think Sloan's doing an excellent job of sharing this story with everyone, and so I know I'll speak for myself. I know that I'm living in recovery as a result of my relationship with God. I absolutely know that, and I know I would not be in recovery if it were not for His help. So I'm always encouraging meetings when I first see people come in. They don't know God. They don't want to know God. They don't have a clue. But as they continue to come to meetings, the next thing you know, they're talking about they're got Him a higher power, and then they'll keep coming. Sooner or later you hear them talking about God. So I'm always encouraged to see that, and I've been around several people in the last several months that I see them getting it, and so that's always uplifting. Because all of us that are living in recovery, we want the other people to make it. We have our hand out, we'll give them a hand up, we'll give them a hand up, not a hand out, and we will assist them however that we can. So we want them to make it.
I'm thinking right now as you say that, people are listening to this show, and I hear this so often. I came into recovery, and y'all started talking about God and God and God, and I didn't want anything to do with God. Well, I want everybody to know that they are right where they need to be. Ralph says that all the time, right? We're right where we need to be. And none of us in a self-respecting journey of our own would push anything on anybody. In fact, they're called suggestions. If somebody is at least sober, man, that's good enough for me.
Absolutely.
Because there's hope. Once somebody can put down the drug or the drink, then there's hope. Yeah, we're going to talk about what our journeys are like and what works for us, but by no stretch of the imagination are we ever going to push that on anybody, because everybody has a right to be who they are. If all they want to be is sober, and we all know somebody that's, quit drinking, but if they ever drank again, they'd be back on an alcoholic route. But they quit drinking. They don't go to meetings. They don't.
Absolutely. Yeah. There's
if that works for them, great.
Yeah.
And
we're not the only way.
We're not the only way, but I choose this way because I want to see how much more, and I've stole this line and I've said it on previous episodes. I want to see how much more awake I can get. So if I'm surrounding myself with you guys and something works for you on your journey, but it doesn't resonate with me, water off my back.
Yeah.
Just okay, whatever. But if I don't hang out with you guys, I may be missing something that you say that I could add to my repertoire, things that would help me. But if I'm not going to go to meetings and I'm just going to be sober, then how am I going to grow? Somebody's got to do the watering. And I think my tribe does that. Yeah. And I think that my God, the God of my understanding, uses my tribe to help me grow.
Oh, I think it's an absolute, yeah. I'm absolutely convinced of it.
Yeah.
When I was early in recovery, I thought, that's crazy, all these coincidences that are happening. And somebody said to me, are they coincidences? And I went, well, what else could they be? Well, I don't know. Think about it.
Yeah. What does Pat say? It's God's way of working anonymously.
Yeah. And then I started thinking about it. Well, that is wild that all these things came together like they did, or that I've got something on my mind. I'm mad about something, or I'm thinking about something, or there's some part of this program that I don't understand, and I walk in a meeting, and lo and behold, that's what's said in that meeting.
Oh yeah.
Like I'm thinking, God, did you structure this whole thing around me? Thanks, man.
Isn't that crazy?
But no, it's like, wow, I can't believe that happened. And it's uncanny.
Yeah.
And everybody in the program will say that. Once you start working this program and you really start working it solemnly, that starts to happen. And I can't explain it other than God.
Yeah.
I don't know what else you would say. And can you put it to a definitive proof? No, but there's something there. Mm-hmm. And there's definitely something to it.
Yeah. Yeah, one of the mantras on Shout Out from the Pit is that, we talk about spirituality and we talk about religion. Everybody is entitled to their own understanding. There's no judgment here at all. But, I share openly on just about every episode, you know, the challenges I've had with my my higher power journey, so to speak. And I stand firm today that there is a balance that works for me.
Yeah.
That is, you know, religion and spirituality. But really, boy, what just chaps me more than anything is when somebody tries to push their views on somebody else.
Well, I just don't think it works. If you try to force God upon somebody, and maybe that's why some people out there have sour, negative views of that, because they were told what God was, what God needed to be to them, and how they needed to, and I don't think that works.
No.
It's so much more. That was done to me, and I thought, oh, I don't want anything of that mess. But when I came to God on my own terms, and it happened slowly for me, but man, it's so much more magical and special, and it feels like a personal connection now.
I think it's part of my own ego, though. If I look at what I just complained about, somebody telling me, well, I've got to believe this way or I got to do that.
Absolutely. I'm not going to do it.
But if I flip the switch and I say, if you don't believe this way, then, you're going to hell, you're wrong, whatever. It seems to me that's like part of my ego. Like, if you do what I say, then you're satisfying my ego.
Exactly.
It just, I don't know if I'm making sense out of that, but I really believe that because of my own struggles throughout my entire life with this whole higher power thing, once I got on, and I only got on the track I got because of this Alcoholics Anonymous saying, hey, it's a God of your understanding. And I've heard people say, well, you could pick a cup, a doorknob. Well, then I heard another guy counter, well, I got that at home, so I don't need to come here. But then some guy said their God could be or had started off with a group of drunks, G-O-D.
Absolutely.
And I thought that is a silly thing to say. I mean, it sounds so stupid, but these guys are keeping me sober. And that's exactly what I needed at that time. As my journey progressed, as you guys know, obviously it mutated and changed. It changed based on, the energies that I put into my recovery. And all of us here have some dear friends in the tribe and external people outside the tribe that do share differences of what their higher power is like. I want to hear it. They share it with me because I don't want to be closed off to anything. But that doesn't mean I have to subscribe the same way they do, nor do I
try to change their opinion.
Not at all. I think this is such a great topic in itself because it is the topic that I've heard people say that scares them away from coming into a recovery program. Don't talk to me about God. Well, then I won't.
Yeah.
I want you to be sober.
I was the same way. And it was kind of left to me to come to it on my own and to figure it out on my own. Nobody, even when I started becoming more curious and asking about it, well, you need to come up with that on your own. I'm not going to tell you, people would share what theirs was, but they wouldn't, you don't have to take that on. And it was a group of drunks for me, and it still is part of it. I do believe that God speaks to me through everybody in the rooms and through my tribe. And, so it's just so much more special when you come to it on your own. And then when you figure it out and you say, I think I'm becoming, I'm starting to form this concept of what I think my higher power is and how it's working in my life and, how I can connect with it. And somebody would have told me when I got in there, you got to believe this and this is what, and you can't, we just I kind of faked it till I made it because I told my sponsor, I said, I don't know about all this God stuff. It sounds to me like a bunch of hocus pocus. And he said, that's okay.
Yeah.
I was trying to almost pick a fight with, get him to debate me.
Yeah, sure.
And say, he didn't. He just said, okay. Yeah. You're right where you need to be. And
I certainly have made my own mistakes with people. That's how we grow. I mean, we make mistakes, but it culminated to an event that I experienced, a few years ago, where I overheard a guy telling another guy, this is really what you need to do, and I interjected and I asked the guy what I'll call the perpetrator to take a walk with me. And I was like, hey, man, you're kind of pushing your faith on this guy. He goes, why are you, Bob, making a deal out of it? You and I share the same faith. And I'm like, because that's not what this program is about. This program is about us, setting an example of sobriety if we share what our higher powers of our understanding, that's okay. But why would, what gives us the right or the power to push that on anybody? It just doesn't. Now, this is completely in contrast to non-recovery. The things that I had heard before I got in, and basically, if you're not going to do this, then you're going to burn. I didn't feel any love.
Right.
But the love that I feel in the program, I mean, I'm telling you, there's some people that are just absolutely not believe the same way I do, but I would rather hang out with them than some other people of the same faith that I have, because they care. I mean, they really exude this, I care about your sobriety. And that matters so much to a fledgling guy coming in going, I either walk to those doors or I put lead in the gun and do my thing.
Yeah.
I would rather have somebody by far come in and tell me, I hate God, I hate you, but I'm not going to drink today. I'll take that. I'll take that.
Yeah, we've seen that before.
Absolutely, absolutely. But I needed to, what we say, baptized by fire.
Yeah.
Because, I put my foot in my mouth. And you guys know I do that all the time. But I also know how to make amends and set my ego aside. I know how to go to a brother and say, all right, this is on me. I own it. I think my ego got in the way, my self-centeredness, and, I do hope you can forgive me and not judge the whole Alcoholics Anonymous based on me, because I can be a jackass, and I just experienced that. So, and really, making true amends from the heart goes such a long ways. But I could never have done that in my alcoholic thinking.
Nor could I, because I didn't think I ever made a mistake.
And if you're bothered by something I said, take a hike.
Yeah.
I don't think that way anymore, So. All right, so let me ask you some buzzwords here, and you tell me what comes to your mind when I say them, okay? All right. Respect.
Respect for myself, probably because I did not respect myself. So I could not expect anybody else to respect me because I didn't respect myself. So, yeah, that's where that word kind of, what that means to me.
All right. Commitment.
Next. No. Commitment. I guess, you've got to show a certain amount of commitment, I think, in daily life to stay sober. Commitment to the program.
Yes.
Commitment to do the things I need to do. Bob, I don't know how to really expound on these.
Whatever comes to your heart.
Yeah.
I hit you with another one.
Okay. Boundaries.
Definitely boundaries. People, places, and things for me. There's still certain things that I won't allow myself to, I'm not going to go to a place where drugs are being used. I can go to a bar, especially if I'm going with the tribe, and hang out in there with the drinking around. But, if I couldn't do that, then I would need to set that boundary and say, guys, I don't need to be going to a bar right now because that's going to trigger me. So, and there's certain people, I still love them. They're my brothers and sisters, but they're still using, and I can't. I just don't. I think it's healthy for me to go around them, and I don't have a reason to be around them. So, if I see them in Walmart, I'm going to give them a hug and say, "Hey, I love you, brother." Otherwise, I'm going to steer clear of them because I've got to set that boundary because they can pull me down a lot easier than I can bring them up. And if they're not ready for recovery, I can go over there talking recovery all day long and it'll go in one ear out the other. But if they say, "Hey, look here, I've got some good drugs," I don't need to put myself in that position. I'm not going to play games with my sobriety. As we touched on a little bit, I like to joke around and I'm a pretty lighthearted guy, but I've got to be serious about my sobriety or I could lose it.
Oh, yeah.
So you have to set up boundaries in that regard with, I don't allow drama anymore. I used to have nothing but drama. Just the people and positions the things I let myself be involved in, there was drama all the time. And I just don't do it. I enjoy my peace and serenity now. I don't think my cat would like drama very much, so I couldn't bring drama to the house. But no, there just isn't. It's just almost non-existent in my life now. I mean, sometimes it's going to come around. Things are going to happen, but I can deal with it now, and I certainly will not invite it in. So,
amen.
Yeah.
All right. A name, and they don't have to be in priority, but whatever comes off the top of your heart. You know where this is going. Name 3 tools you've learned in recovery that you use to maintain your journey, and how do you use them?
Okay. The first one for somebody early, I would say people, places, and things. You need to sit down and do a very, very honest look at, if I was a bar drinker and now I'm in recovery, and say I've got a little bit of time, is it going to be good for me to go hang out at a bar? That's a place. You need to really take an honest evaluation of maybe I don't need to be going to that place. People that trigger me, people that are using, if I was a user, maybe I don't need to, it's not that you don't like those people or you're doing something to snub them, but maybe you need to think about not being around that kind of an environment. You've got to look out for number one, especially early in sobriety, when you don't have the other tools you can use. So people, places, and things, that's my number one for early recovery. The other one is probably that telephone, picking up that phone, whether I'm in a bad way or not. I like to just call other alcoholics. I don't have a job, so some people do, and I forget. I tend to call sometimes during the day, and I'm like, what are you doing? And they're like, well, I'm working. What are you doing? Is it an emergency? And I'm like, no, I just one alcoholic calling another. But, I like to do that, and I don't like to bother people at work. But after 5 o'clock, I'll usually make a few phone calls to other alcoholics, usually guys in the tribe, and just say, hey, brother, what are you doing? And we can talk about the weather. We can talk about whatever. We don't have to be in recovery. Or when I'm having one of those days where I'm like, man, I've got something rolling around in my head and it's bothering me and I don't know exactly what to do about it. What do you think? That's a wonderful tool to have. That's something I didn't have before. I was trying to go it alone. And what do you always say, Bob? He who counsels with himself counsels with a fool. And so I was trying to figure all this stuff out by myself, and it wasn't working. I was in a closed loop. So now I can call other brothers and talk about it with them and run something by them. If I'm thinking about making a major decision, say, hey, man, I'm thinking about calling off and buying a new home. What do you think? Should I do that? Am I comfortable where I am? Should I make that move? And just see what they think. I don't have to go along with it, but to have other people's opinions. So picking up the phone is another big tool, talking to other, and it kind of segues into the third one, hanging around with people of like mind that are sober and that are in recovery. That's important for me too. I still got friends out there and got friends that drink, and I don't really have a lot of friends that still use that I actively hang out with, but I've got, regular friends that can go out to a restaurant and have a drink, and it doesn't bother me any. But mostly I hang around with people in recovery, and we go to a lot of meetings. We stay, immersed in the program. And that's another tool. Get in the middle of the herd, and especially beginning, get as much recovery as you can possibly get. I mean, if you've got a job, that's one thing, and you've got maybe kids or, a significant other, that has to, factor into the thing. You've got to still have all those things, but go to as many meetings as you can go to, hang around sober people and get numbers. And people in AA will give you their number freely. There's usually a phone list somewhere on a bulletin board, or somebody will have it. And I've never called an alcoholic out of the clear blue that they just didn't appreciate my phone call.
Right. Good answer. Okay, final question.
All right.
Are you ready? Double
ready.
Jeopardy.
Okay.
Sloan, what is your purpose in life now?
I'll get back to you on that in about 30 years. No, Bob, I think I'm still trying to figure that out fully. I don't think I know 100%. For right now, it's probably staying sober and trying to help other alcoholics. I have a passion for that. I do feel like when I'm doing that, I feel like that's what God wants me to do. So if that's a purpose, I don't think it's some, used to, I when I first got in the program, I wanted my purpose to be some grandiose. I wanted to be the guy that, people said, oh, have you ever heard him speak? That I wanted to be the best AA that ever came around the thing. And, I thought, I want a bronze bust of my statue out in front of our home group. I don't think like that anymore. I don't need to do that anymore. If I can stay sober, I can help other alcoholics, and I can help other people. I mentioned earlier that my kidneys have failed. I go into dialysis, and I get around, thank God that I get around a lot better than about 90% of the people in there. So I'll grab somebody's wheelchair and push them in the area where we get our dialysis, or pick up their bag for them, or hold a door, or just have a conversation with them. There's several people in there that I feel so bad for because I think that they don't get to talk to anyone. So I'll say, hey, Miss So-and-so, how's that granddaughter of yours? And she'll say, well, let me tell you all about it. And, just to hear someone, I think that makes their day. You can do little things, make a big difference to people. And I think increasingly in this world, bringing that into the world, opening a door for somebody, let them in, cut in front of you in traffic and just let them go. Pay somebody's tab, pay it forward at the drive-through window, just little things like that. I think you can make the world a better place. You don't have to be the next, whoever, Gandhi or, Mother Teresa, whoever. You just do little things like that. And I think if we all did that, the world would be a great place to live in. So, yeah, that's my purpose.
Love it. Love it. Dwight, you got any thoughts?
Been a very good meeting, and thanks for allowing me to be here with you guys.
All right. Well, I'm always glad to be surrounded by tribal guys. That's for sure. And even people that aren't, in our tribe, so to speak, that we meet, that are new, that come on the show. It's like meeting new friends if they start hanging out with us. We're not an exclusive club. Ladies have their own tribe. We know how that works. And we're not a He-Man woman hater club, but the guys need to stick with the guys and groom each other so we be the men that women deserve, and
Yes.
The men that children deserve, and friends, and et cetera, et cetera. Women, you guys have your tribal thing, so you can be the women that that your children deserve, that your husbands deserve, and et cetera, et cetera. So. This is free flow time, and actually, as our speaker today, Sloan, I defer to you.
Oh yeah, I've got a little something. I just want to say, Bob, it's an honor to be here, share my story. Hopefully it does something for somebody. If it doesn't, it's keeping me sober. Oh. But as always, it's really cool that you're doing this. I just can't say enough good things about it. I just think it's awesome, but it's an honor to be a part of it. I'm so glad. Every time you ask me to be on it, I'm like, do you really want me to be there? I mean, come on, man, really? But yeah, I love it. And it's an absolute honor to be here and to be able to share my story and to do this and hopefully to help someone.
Well, amen. I just want to remind you, Sloan, that you've been with us since the very beginning of this, and we did our first show in your place. So
I remember. Yes. That's awesome.
All right. Well, Dwight, Sloan, thank you so much for hanging out today. You guys bless me. I'm a better man because you guys, and my life just don't get no better than this, man. All right. So what say you, audience, on today's show? Leave your thoughts and comments on shoutoutfromthepit.com. That's it. We're done. Thanks for listening in. And oh yeah, hey, please share our show with folks that could use some encouragement and extra tools for their recovery journey. The buck bucket is up. Hit the donation link on shoutoutfromthepit.com and help us update our crappy equipment and grow the show. And be sure to subscribe at shoutoutfromthepit.com for future episodes. As Ralph would say, it's for free and for fun. Remember, you are not alone. And if no one's told you they love you today,
we love you.
All right. I'm Bob the Old Rucker, praying you're having an outstanding American day. God bless and peace out.